Coming at you live from the heart of Lincoln, America. This is What's Brewing with Chancellor Brewington on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Here is your host, Chancellor Brewington.
What is going on, everyone? I'm Chancellor Brewington. You're listening to Ticket Weeknights with me, myself, Chancellor Brewington, former Nebraska football tight end. Tonight is a special show. I always say it's a special show just because I get an opportunity to say what's on my mind. I get the platform to speak. I get the platform to, say the things that I'm learning, say the things that, are on my quote unquote heart. And we've talked a lot about what the heart is. And just the journey that I'm on and I as it relates to my life and as it relates to your life, we also sprinkle in the good book, the good word, the Bible, of course. And to preface this show, I don't Bible beat or push the Bible on anyone. It's just a book that I live by, and I just love it. It's full of, I always say it's full of principles, promises, patterns, precepts, prayers, parallels, personifications, analogies. It's a very rich book. It's a book that I love, and I love a lot of other books too. I mean, one thing I did I would say not a very good job of when I was earlier in my life was not I was closed off to outside information. And I realized once I got older, it was the things that I didn't know that were keeping me from my destiny or keeping me from where I wanted to go. And so I decided after football, I've said this before, but I decided after football, I said, I no longer am going to be the one that didn't know. And as I went on this journey, I was, at the beginning, I'm thinking that if I read enough books and I, do research, I study and I, seek wisdom, seek knowledge, that eventually I'll know it all. Right. And as I'm on this journey, I realized that I'll never know it all. And I realized that the amount of knowledge out there it's so vast. And the more you learn, you realize that you know literally nothing at all. I believe Confucius said it, something like that. The more I learn that I know nothing at all. And I understand and I love conversations now. I love being to pick people's brains and understand, where they're coming from. And I think books give me that perspective, because if you notice that, as your current, like when I'm reading a book right now, it's called Make Your Bed by Admiral William H. McRaven. It's a bestseller. It says the little things that you can change. It's the little things that can change your life and maybe the world. But it's a fantastic book. But I read a lot of books. I always say the one I'm reading is always fantastic, because I really love that people take their time, first of all, to write down what they're going through or what they learned, or their journey or their knowledge, their wisdom, inspiration, and then share it with us. So I absolutely love that. I absolutely love it. And as I'm reading, I read, and then I realize that I'm slowly in my imagination, I'm forming a picture to go along with the words I'm reading. And it's just really good for the brain and really good for the creative side of you. And it's awesome in conversations, man. It feels like, I'm about 6.5 months into this reading journey, and I'm reading about, 9 books a month, which is pretty crazy. If I was to say this a year ago, I would have laughed that I was ever going to do this, right? But I'm on a journey to reading 100 books in a year. And I just want to do that because I know that there's benefits. But as I'm reading, I realize that I'm able to have conversations with anyone, and I'm able to relate to people I would never be able to relate to. I would, people say something about, such and such, and, this, and this. And I'm able to relate to it because I've read something on it, or I heard it in a book, or I heard it in a podcast, or I heard about this. Then we can have a conversation and never know where that relationship might lead to. But that's kind of the journey that I'm on. And I realized that on this journey is that, wisdom, I believe it's in Proverbs. It says that wisdom is, it should be valued over gold and riches. Wisdom is more important than those things. And In fact, I believe that wisdom uh comes first before riches, meaning that once you acquire wisdom, the riches come. And so I figure, man, if I can just, that's what Solomon asked for to lead the people of Israel. He could ask for, fame, all these different things, right? But he asked for wisdom. And so I'm kind of on this search, of course. And it's a beautiful journey. It's a beautiful journey. I never would have thought would ever go on it. I'm like, I always take myself like to where I am now. And I realized that it's this is all, you can call him creator, source, God, whatever. It's God ordained. There was a moment in time where in my football career where I thought it was going to end. It was 2022, my last year in football. I'm training, and then all of a sudden my wrist flares up, the one I got surgery on, and I go and get surgery. Prior to that, they said, it's a risky surgery, 50-50 chance it works, even though I've never heard of a 50-50 chance surgery, right? On a routine broken wrist. But it ended up just where the wrist was broken, tough spot to get to, yada, yada, yada. Then fast forward, I get out of surgery. They say I have a 0% chance of playing, that I should start, you know, basically looking for another career, another whatever, because I won't be playing football anymore. And I remember getting the news, and my mom was there. I just came out. It was like the next day. My mom didn't tell me right away, because the surgeon comes and speaks with your family while you're recovering post operation. And so my mom pulls me aside 2 days later while the meds are down a little bit. I'm not very loopy, and I'm able to understand what she's about to say. And she tells me, doctor says you'll have a 0% chance to play. And I remember I was like, ah, man, that's funny. And so she's like, no, she's like, kind of getting emotional. She's like, yeah, like I don't know if you can play no more, like yada yada. So I said, that's what he said. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, I just started laughing. Because I saw it. I already knew I was going to play. And then, I decided and declared and decreed right then and there that I was going to play. And I was fully confident. But I'll tell you what, during the journey, um, I said that at the very beginning, I still had 6 months to go through. And those 6 months were very, very hard. There's a lot of days in there where I didn't know if it was going to work. I didn't know how it was going to work. I didn't know if I knew it. How should I say this? I knew it was gonna work, but there was like some days you just feel like you're on top of the world when you set out to do something. I don't know if you guys can ever relate to this. Like you set out like you set out to start the business, or you set out to do this, and you start off great, and then all of a sudden the real work kicks in, and things don't go your way, and you're behind deadline, or this and this, and it feels like the analogy of like surfing a wave, like you're on top of the wave, and then all of a sudden you fall off and you're at the bottom of the wave. And sometimes I look back and I feel as if a lot of days I felt like I was on the bottom of the wave, but I had an underlying thing. I could talk about the subconscious at like a subconscious level. I just knew, I just 1000% knew I was going to play. And to talk a little bit more about the story, it's pretty fun. And I ended up getting a interesting reputation at Nebraska off of this story. But 4 or 5 months later, I would have routine checkups, probably every month, and they would check and see, do an X-ray on the wrist, see if it's healing. It got to a point where they put bone in my wrist, right? So the X-rays weren't really showing much, right? And so basically it was just an eye test on the outside, like, oh, how's it moving? You can't do this and this. I'm like, no, everything feels great, right? No matter if it hurt like heck, I would always come in there and say everything felt great. And so fast forward, 6 months, you got training camp that starts at the end of July. I have probably like July 28th, 29th. I have an appointment July 23rd, 24th. So like, 4 or 5 days before training camp to get cleared. Right. And so at this point, I didn't do any physical therapy. I know this sounds absolutely insane for anyone who knows about this stuff. I didn't do any. The technical term was I broke my scaphoid first time, and then the second time I rebroke it. and they had to take a bone graft from my hip and put it into my wrist because all the bone was dead and decayed in there. Okay, so they had a right to say exactly what they wanted, right? About 0% chance playing this, and this. But there's one thing I knew is that I decide what I want to do with my life. There's no doctor tells me this, no whatever. Obviously, there's different circumstances, but for my particularly, no, I decided what I was going to do. And so that July 22nd, I would it's what's the word for it? It's the where they basically check you off if you can play. Okay, so you need the doctor's and surgeon's approval, and we set up the meeting. You know, it's 2 days before, and then it's the day before, and I said I'm gonna clear myself, and I don't know how this happened, but I just cleared myself. I just didn't show up. I just didn't show up. I didn't show up to the appointment. And everyone in the building, like, Nebraska just was like, "What do you mean you didn't show up?" I said, "I'm ready to go." And then I told him, I said, "If I'm not ready to go, then I just won't play this year. But I think I'm going to be ready to go." And they were like, "Well, you didn't do rehab, you didn't do physical therapy." And I just told everyone, I said, look, either I'm going to be completely wrong and I'm going to look stupid, right? Or I'm going to be able to play. And so I remember being so I didn't try to hit a bag cuz I play tight end, fullback, H back, all these positions, and I had to use my hands. I had to catch the ball, I had to block, and I had to do all these things, right? And so we get out to first day of fall camp, and I remember I taped my wrist, good wrist tape. Everything, for the most part felt good, but I still haven't done much, right? I haven't really caught a ball yet. I haven't blocked anyone. I haven't, got hit yet, right? And so it got to the point where we go to our first period and we're catching footballs. And I remember going through the first day of practice. It was like it was yesterday. I was going through the first day of practice, and I remember I just was walking out with my helmet, and there was like a surge of just gratitude that came over me because I was like, man, like I would say just 5 6 months ago, and during that whole process, people were saying I was never going to play, but I kept Jim Rohn says it best. I love it. Stand guard at the gate of your mind, because you can't let anything get in there. You can't let anything get in there. Your mind is. I love the book As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. He describes the mind as a garden, and that if you keep your mind, or you keep your garden, well, and you plant good seed in there, you water it, you take good care of it, you pull out weeds, then it grows into a great garden, right? And everyone will see the fruits and all these different things, right? But if you don't keep your garden, I should say, if you don't keep your garden, weeds will grow, and um, the appearance will be bad, and people will be able to tell that you don't keep your garden well. And so during this time of this risk thing, I was just keeping my garden, and I understood. I guess I kind of always understood, as a man thinketh, so is he. Proverbs 23 verse 7. I always understood that, but I didn't understand the full extent, and I still don't understand the full extent. It's something that I'm just fascinated about, is how the mind is the law of thought, is that what we think we become. And it all starts from within. It all starts from within, and I think that that's a conversation of ownership, over your life, ownership over your thoughts, ownership over the quality of your life. Because think about it, I used to play with a lot of people, a lot of guys that just had terrible mindsets, to be completely honest with you, and it used to really frustrate me. Sometimes I wasn't the most patient, let me be just transparent, and I just wouldn't like to hear those type of things. And one thing that was a common occurrence on every team I played at, I played first at Northern Arizona, I played 3.5 years there, then I played 2 years at Nebraska. And I've heard this from a young pup to little league football to the college football level. And what it was is, guys would always say the coaches don't like me. The coach is the reason why I'm not playing. The coach is the reason this. The teacher doesn't like me. This, and this. They're playing favorites. They don't think I'm good enough. This, and this. And so I never understood that. I never understood that. I used to have a I used to have an OG how can I say this, a mentor kind of, right? And he would say, he told a story about his dad. um he called his dad one day. This guy actually played at Nebraska back in the 90s. Called his dad one day and said, I feel like the coach doesn't like me, this and this. I'm from here, he's from a different part of town, or a different part of the United States. Like, culturally, we're very different. Like, I feel like he doesn't like me, he doesn't understand me. And this is what the dad said. He said, "You make him like you. Everyone likes you. You make him like you." And so I think and I'm not saying everyone needs to like you, even though I did read a fantastic book by Dale Carnegie. I believe that's how you say his last name. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Fantastic book. Recommend it. But I will say this, that if you think that someone won't like you, I guarantee you 10 times out of 10, they not going to like you. But I guarantee, if you really feel, not at just a conscious level to where you're thinking about it, but it gets deposited into that garden of your mind, right? That we were talking about. And then all of a sudden you plan in there that, everyone likes me. I have a great relationship with this person. This person trusts me. We are very not what's not compatible. We are very respectful of each other. Um, relay positive energy towards each other, right? Like, we can be in the same place. The environments, whenever we get in the same place, the environment is magnificent, whatever it is, right? And you impress that upon your subconscious at some point, right? Because the law of thought is, as a man thinketh, so is he. At some point, it has to happen, right? If this is the law, David says it like this. David says it like this, and I believe it's Psalms 1. Psalms 1, I believe. He says in verse 2, 1, I love how you start the Psalms off with the banger. It says verse 2, but delight in his law, talking about the Lord, the law of the Lord, right? What is the law? And it's not talking about the do's and don'ts, right? Just the law of the Lord, the principles of the Lord, the precepts of the Lord. And his law, he meditates day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of the water, that brings forth its fruit in its season, whose leaf also shall not wither, and whatever he does shall prosper. Shall prosper. He shall prosper in whatever he does. In whatever he does. I really love this one. I really think people can benefit from this, and people can learn more about how they think. I think a good question, I literally saw it right before I came here. I was watching, I forget where I saw it, but someone was talking about, just ask your question, like, what are you thinking about? Well, like, what are you thinking about right now? Because that's a big question. I don't think we realize that we have 60,000 thoughts a day. 60,000 thoughts a day. And it's very it's very important to understand that you're always thinking about something. And those thoughts are things. Those thoughts are things. That's the principle. Thoughts are things. Thoughts have energy. Thoughts create things in your life. And so if you look at your life, right, and this goes back to the question, the comment by player saying the coach doesn't like me. If you realize that if you let me say it like this, if you blame the coach for not liking you, guess who you give the power to? Because where you give blame, power also follows. Okay, does that make sense? Now there's the flip though. Now if I say I'm the reason I got here, obviously within that you have to forgive yourself. There it can't be you can't be negative about yourself. You always have to keep a sense of forgiveness for yourself, obviously, and not dwell on the past, right? And move forward, of course. But to say I'm the reason I got here, what this does now, it gives you power. Now it gives you power, right? It's you take back the power, you take back the ownership over your life, and now you claim the responsibility for what is moving forward, right? Because we can't, in this present moment that I'm sitting in right now, I have created this. Okay. I've created this by thought. I've created this by action. I've created this by the words I've spoken, because life and death is in the power of the tongue, right? So I've gotten here by what I've thought, all these different things, right? Now, what I'm going to create moving forward, or right here, I can't create what I'm doing right now in this present moment. I can't create in this present moment, but what I can do is create for my future. Okay. And that's something I wish I had the wisdom to tell people when I was younger, is like, listen, like, man, we got to fix the way you think, because everything stems from it. Like, keeping your garden right, keeping your mind right is so important. So important. I had a conversation with someone, um, interesting individual. I had a conversation with someone, and uh, they were saying they're sick, and I was like, just a little like cough, right? And I was like, yeah, you are. I was like, yeah, you are. And then she's like, well, what are you talking about? I said, well, you just said you're sick. It's like, yeah, and I was like, you're probably thinking about being sick right now too. And she's like, well, yeah, obviously, because I'm sick. And I was like, well, just be healthy tomorrow. And she's like, it's not that simple. And I was like, well, why is it not? It's like, well, because I'm sick. And I was like, you are. I was like, what if you're healthy? And she's like, that it doesn't work like that. And I was like, well, if you say you're sick, you'll 100% of the time, I'm sure you'll be right. But if you say you're healthy and you think about it, I guarantee you're going to be right. I guarantee it. And you believe that you're healthy. And that's all flooded in your brain. Thoughts that you think about is all healthy thoughts. I guarantee at some point you're going to be healthy. I don't know if it's going to happen right away, but you're going to get healthy. And I'm not saying, and I'm definitely not saying, I've had people with cancer, and I've had people in my family with serious diseases, of course. But I will say is that my mother did have cancer. My mother had stage 3 um, cancer, a melanoma, a skin cancer. And one thing that she learned during this time is not to claim your sickness. And I love this show because we just go from topic to topic, free flowing. We just went from, what did we talk about? Football, to now we're talking about health. But this is the one thing I learned from her journey, is that you don't claim your sickness. And so when someone around me, and I have to say it, and I don't mean to sound arrogant, and I don't mean to sound um cocky, or self-righteous. I don't even know what the adjective would be. But when someone around me says, I get sick during this and this, in my head I'm like, yeah, you definitely probably will get sick now, right? And so whenever someone asks me, like, if I get sick, I say I never get sick. I never get sick. I'm always healthy. Right. And now I look back, I'm like, man, I haven't been sick in a while. Right. And I don't believe in jinxing, and I don't believe in none of that. Right. I don't play that. But it's like thoughts, feelings get the blessing. Right. It's the one who feels it. And once to get it to feel something, man, you gotta be active in what you plant inside your head. And I'm doing a awesome thing with my friends right now. A tight group of four, of three, well, three, right, including me, four of my friends. We do this thing called 21 days of impression. Okay. So we're doing 21 days of impression. I would suggest it to do it with, a loved one, whatever it is. And we want to do like some accountability group, right? And so I didn't want to do like a accountability of like the do's and don'ts, right? Like, did you do this today, or did you, like, I don't, like, negative, right? I want to do like a do and don't accountability of something really positive, something that we're like creating something in our lives, that we're investing in ourselves for the future, and all these different things. And so for 21 days straight, we wrote down, like, it's kind of like a prayers slash affirmation slash um just like thankful note. But in there we have specifically like a certain subject. And I'll just be transparent. Mine is success and prosperity. Um and uh and what else is in there? Just abundance, not just, and this, you might think, oh, this is all about money. No, it's not. It's definitely not that. But the money is definitely in there. I'm gonna be honest with you, because I believe that everywhere in the Bible it says that the wealth of God has been stored up for the righteous, right? I'm completely and with that, and in agreement with that. But so we do this for 21 days straight, and we do this at two times. I guess this is not really throughout the day, but you do it at nighttime. preferably, of course, 10 minutes before you go to bed, right? 5 to 10 minutes. That window where you're kind of drowsy. It's kind of tough because when I read it now, then I get super excited and I start daydreaming and whatever, and then I can't fall asleep sometimes. But I'm gonna end up probably reading it again, but I read it, right? And I really take time to let it digest in my system. And some nights I do it better than others, but I definitely hit it every night, right? And so then when I wake up, I read it again, right, to start my day. And I'm about to start along with this, right? So we always send like a text in the morning and say like, we send a check mark in the group chat saying we done it. And we keep a day track. I remember one of our friends, one of the guys in the group, he decided that he wanted to change his, and he slipped up and he didn't do it for like 2 days, right? And so we restarted, right? We were like, and it was frustrating. We were like 10 days in, right? But it's okay. It says that there's been studies shown that there's an ancient rule of 21 days, right? And that it takes 21 days to build a habit. It takes 21 days to impress something upon the subconscious mind. There were astronauts. What book was this? My goodness, I couldn't even tell you what book this was. But there are astronauts who were preparing to go to space, and they had to wear these glasses for 30 days that like flipped everything upside down, right? And so first few days, crazy tough, like it's rough. You're having to brush your teeth and do all these different things, right? And it's super hard. And when it got to, I believe it was like the 25-day period, then everything flipped upside down. Okay, so now they saw everything regular. Why? Because at a certain point, it got impressed upon the subconscious, and it became a habit. It became something that you didn't need to consciously think about, right? So it got planted in the mind, right? That this is what it is, and it flipped everything upside down. Okay, there's more neuroscience behind this. I don't know it yet, but that's just what the book is. So the point of the story is that doing this and actively doing something very specific, building a habit, is technically impressing something upon like the subconscious or the part, because you have to understand that subconscious doesn't fall asleep. It's always awake. It's always awake, and it's always creating something. Your mind is always creating something. And it's the most important part. It's most important to do that before you go to bed, because you're conscious, the things that you're always, we have 60,000 thoughts. So while you're sleeping, you don't really have thoughts. You have dreams, of course. Those are in your subconscious, right? And people get great ideas from dreams. People get great inspiration, great direction, great guidance from dreams. We see that all throughout the Bible. Joseph, Jacob, who else? I mean, Adam, all these people. You have to understand that God, the first day God created, the first day, it says God created night and then he created day. So night starts, right? Because God can't, it's hard for sometimes God to speak to us because we have all these thoughts, we have all these different things going on. And so sometimes he just needs us to fall asleep, literally. Sometimes he just needs to fall asleep so he can speak to us. And because sometimes we just worry too much and we don't understand that everything is finished and that everything is complete. But this is Take It Weeknights with Chancellor Brewington. We'll be right back. Peace.
Across Nebraska, voters will have the chance to end the current government abortion ban. The government shouldn't be making decisions for families' health care, but right now they are. Ending the ban takes 2 votes. A vote against 434, the first initiative, and then a vote for 439, the last initiative. It's only this combination that will finally get the government out of the personal medical decisions of Nebraska families. Voting against 434 and for 439 ensures that when there's a medical emergency, it's Nebraska families who decide what to do, not the government. This vote against 434 and for 439 makes it so our Nebraska doctors can treat every patient. The government put this ban in place, stripping Nebraska families of their freedom, but you can end it with 2 votes. The first against 434, and then vote for 439. Paid for by Protect Our Rights.
Hi, I'm State Senator Bo Ballard. I was born and raised right here in Lancaster County. I understand the value of hard work by being involved in our family business. I built my own company, creating jobs right here in our community. Nebraska families and business owners need lower taxes, more affordable health care, and a great education system. That is why I fought for the largest tax cut in Nebraska history, reduce the cost of health care, and help pass the biggest investment in our public schools. I'm Senator Bo Ballard, and I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th, paid for by Ballard for Nebraska.
Hi, this is Investigator Joe Villamonte with the Lincoln Police Union, asking you to vote for Carolyn Bosin for legislator. As a prosecutor, Carolyn Bosin has always supported law enforcement to keep our community safe. Carolyn Bosin has the experience we need. Carolyn Bosin is the only choice for legislator to keep our community safe. Join the law enforcement community in voting to keep our community safe. Vote Carolyn Bosin on November 5th.
Paid for by Bosin for legislature.
Rashawn Jackson here for Bauer Underground, who has been serving local contractors and utility contractors all across the state since 1997. When you see the black and white trucks, you know the baddest dudes in the business have arrived. Bauer is currently looking for equipment operators, laborers, diesel mechanics, and aerial linemen. Join the brotherhood built on hard work, authentic people, and pedigree of success. Bauer, a family-friendly company who reminds you, go Big Red!
The electrical workers of Local Union 265 are now hiring licensed journeyman electricians from $32.50 to $42.50 per hour with paid benefits. And if you're looking for a new career, they're hiring apprentices at $19.50 per hour with paid benefits. Call the office at 402-423-4497 to apply. Start your electrical career today. The Mill Coffee and Tea, formerly with only 4 Lincoln locations, now 5 Lincoln locations. That's 25% more locations than there used to be. Can you even imagine a world where there's only 4 Lincoln Mill locations? That feels like ages ago. We were all so young then. The Mill on 11th, located right alongside the 93.7 The Ticket Studios on O Street.
Back to What's Brewing with Chancellor Brewington on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
What is going on, everyone? We're back with Ticket Weeknights. I'm Chancellor Brewington, and I'm kind of just guiding this conversation. I feel like I'm talking to someone. I don't know who I'm talking to, but I feel like someone's sitting across the table from me, and we're really having a great conversation. We were just talking about, the mind, and, I feel like I bring everything back to the mind because that's what I'm fascinated about right now. Maybe it will change, when we do a show in a couple of weeks or a month. A lot of things of what I talk about is something I'm currently reading. Although what I'm reading right now, I said previously, is Make Your Bed. And I didn't talk about making your bed on here, even though the book's way deeper than that. But we are on this awesome conversation. And it kind of just, as we go, we just find certain things. I love this passage. I think this is where we start for this segment. I love this passage from Matthew 18. And first of all, I love the book of Matthew. I think the book of Matthew has a lot of, I would say, meat in there. It has a lot of great things in there. It comes out of Matthew 18. I'll just read verse 1. It's verse 1 through verse 5. It says, "At the time, the disciples came to Jesus saying, 'Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?' Okay. Then Jesus called a little child to him, set him in the midst of him, and said, 'Assuredly, I say to you, unless you are converted and become as little children, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever humbles himself as this little child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Whoever receives one little child like this in my name receives me.'" That is so good. That's so rich too. You talk about this concept of becoming childlike. Like, what is that? What does that mean? Okay, I have to become like a child to enter the kingdom of heaven. Like, what does that mean? I know the disciples were probably, Jesus goes on to explain it a little bit more, but I'm sure that there's certain things that weren't recorded, right? And they're like, "Hey, what did you mean yesterday with that child talk? Like, what are you talking about?" Right? And I'm sure it's kind of the same question that Nicodemus had for Jesus as well. Nicodemus, a well respected, a well known, well regarded, religious leader of the time, Jewish law leader. Um, he asked Jesus a question. They met at 3 a.m. He was like, "What are you talking about being born again?" Like, Nicodemus is an older guy. I'm sure he's, gray hairs, 60, 70 years old, right? He's like, "What do you mean I gotta be born again to get in the kingdom?" Right. And so it's kind of that same concept of like, man, what do you mean? Like for me, I'm 25 years old. What do you mean I gotta become like a little child? Well, I had an interesting experience. I heard this verse, right? And I had a plane ride back to Lincoln. I was coming from Arizona. I'm on the plane and I'm sitting in the back of the plane, right? Not first class yet, but I'm sitting in the back of the plane and there's two kids behind me with a mother, right? And the kids are, to be frank, they're loud, they're super loud, super vocal, but and everyone around me was probably, super frustrated. I mean, they were probably kicking on my chair and, just acting crazy, right? But I noticed what they were doing. They were asking their mom a bunch of questions, So some super simple, some were actually very interesting, right? She was saying like, what happens, if the wing falls off, right? And the mom's like, well, we would crash, like, all these different things, right? What does this mean? They're asking, the lady, what the lady's name, that the flight attendant that walks the aisle, like what she does, all these different things. And it kind of occurred to me in that time. I'm like, maybe this is what the word is talking about when it says become like a child. Like, man, like, Father, what does that mean? Like, I'm always in this constant state of curiosity. Like, okay, like, and it's kind of what I said at the beginning is like, I'm learning so much and I'm learning that I know so little. And so you're constantly in the state. And I ask myself a lot. I ask, God, and I believe that God is inside me. So, I ask the voice in my head that I know is God, and I say, well, why am I here right now? Why am I here? What is this? What does this mean? Where should I be with this? What type of things should I do? Like, what type of things should I pursue? And it's pretty awesome to get to a place where like, man, like this is where I'm at, right? And you get the answer. And by asking the question, you're basically saying, I don't have the answer. And I need my Father to tell me, the one who knows all. And I think also becoming a child, it's almost like becoming I just know, like back in the day, man, when I was a kid, like I felt like I could do anything. I felt like I could do anything. I felt like, especially when I was a kid and my dad was around or my mom was around, I thought they were superheroes. Like I thought when I was with them, everything was going to be all right. I didn't have to worry. I never had to question if I was going to eat. If I never had to question. Well, let me keep going. I never had to question, if we were, let me be careful what I'm about to say. Basically what I'm saying is I knew that everything was going to be provided for in a certain sense. Okay. And so I knew all these things, right? And so as I move forward, I'm like, as a child, I really didn't have too many cares, or the traditional child doesn't have many cares, right? They know that their parents are going to provide food. They know that they're going to provide shelter. They're going to know that they provide everything. And I feel like this is kind of what he's talking about. Like you got to enter the kingdom knowing that all your cares and needs are going to be met, and that you have to come in there with an openness. You have to come in there with a childlike spirit. You have to come in there, not coming as an adult that has a bunch of worries, anxieties, past failures, and all these different things. Children don't know anything about that. You ask a child what they want to be, they're like, yeah, I'm going to be this. They don't say, yeah, well, maybe I'm going to do this, but this is a really expensive field. You got to get a lot of schooling, you got to do this. Then, also you got to have relationships, and, they only pick, 5% of the graduating class, and this, right? Like, no, they don't think like that. What they think is that I'm going to do this because I'm this, right? I had a opportunity to serve at a kids camp, and I was asking I was so fascinated by this verse. So I'm asking all the kids, like, what do you want to be? What do you want to be? And they're so confident, right? And they're like, I want to be this, right? I want to be a doctor. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be an NBA player. I want to do all this. And I'm like, this is what the verse is talking about. I know it is, because you talk to children and they don't really care about things. They don't worry about things. They don't lose sleep over things. All they quote unquote worried about, right, is, I mean, they're not, I don't even know if they're worried about anything, right? They just want to learn. They just want to understand life. They enjoy life. They want to have smiles. They want to have fun. And I believe that this is kind of what it's talking about, to enter the kingdom of heaven like a child, like a child. Um, it's an interesting concept, and I'm not saying that my interpretation is correct or my interpretation is the best, but what I will say is that I think we worry too much, and I do think those worrying thoughts, just out of how can I get how can I keep this it's basically like it's a low frequency vibration that you're getting off. Let me just get a little weird. It's a low frequency vibration that you're giving off: worry, doubt, anxiety, depression. But when you're in a state of gratitude, when you're in a state of positive curiosity, when you're in a loving state, when you're in a joyful state, a peaceful state, then those create fantastic, first of all, learning environments. Those create fantastic just environments for relationships, environments for health, environments for abundance. Those the type of things that we have to flood our mind with. I believe it's in Philippians. Paul says an amazing thing about not worrying, um, about not, I guess not worrying. I have it right here. Badges. Got to go to my save, all my highlights on my it says in Philippians 4:6. I like New King James version. That's the version I read. It says, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God will surpass all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus." That is not the verse at all, but great verse. This is Yep, this is the one. And it talks about meditation. I love meditating. I meditated before the show. I thought about, I honestly didn't even think about the show. All of a sudden I have this visualization of me later in life with I have just this idea of like what I want, where I see myself, years and years down the line. And it just brings me a lot of peace knowing that God has a plan for me and all these different things, right? So I meditate on that, and it gets me in a really good mood. And so I always, it's kind of this verse that gets me there. Philippians 4:8, it says, "Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are good, of good report, if there are any virtue, if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things." Meditate on these things. I saw an awesome thing. One of my favorite UFC fighters, Israel Adesanya, although he's going through a little bit of slump right now. He said he keeps a gratitude journal, and it's fantastic. You need to go look up this interview, but he keeps a gratitude journal. I only saw this part of the interview, so if you see anything else on there that ain't appropriate, that ain't on me. But he keeps a gratitude journal, and he gratitude journals at the end of his day. Okay, so he writes 3 things that he's grateful for. And he noticed as he kept doing this, right? And he used to meditate on it as well. As he kept doing this day after day, right? Time after time, he would journal. When he would wake up the next day, after a couple of weeks, a few weeks, right? Now we talked about things getting impressed upon the subconscious, right? After a few weeks, now he's actively searching and actively looking for something to be grateful for in every situation. How about that? So if we keep our minds on the things that are true, the things that are noble, the things that are just, the things that are lovely, the things that are of good report, things of virtue, things that are praiseworthy at a certain level, I mean, we should be able to, we should be seeking things out throughout the day. Man, like I gotta be able to just dwell on this. I want to read another. I love the Message version for some of these, or actually the Amplified. Oh yeah, let's do Amplified. "Finally, believers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever worthy of respect, whatever is right, confirmed by God's word, whatever is pure and wholesome, whatever is lovely, brings peace, whatever is admirable and of good report, if there's any excellence, if there anything worthy of praise, think continually on these things. Center your mind on them and implant them in your heart. Oh my gosh, this is the first time I read this. This is fantastic. Center your mind on them. Okay, center your mind. When you meditate, the word meditate means to bring a thought forward. Okay, and then it says to implant them in your heart. We talked about what the heart was, and we talked about it being a garden, and it says implant them in your heart. Implant it in your heart. So if we can implant in our heart pure thoughts of good report, good thoughts worthy of praise, good thoughts of excellence, good thoughts of us being healthy, good thoughts of us succeeding, good thoughts of us doing excellent things, good thoughts of positive, us, encountering positive people, good thoughts about a positive workplace, good thoughts about great relationships with spouse, great relationships with children, great relationships in the workplace, all these different things. Now, all of a sudden, they get planted at a deeper level. Now the thoughts become things. We talked about thoughts becomes things because as a man thinketh, so is he. So at a certain point, those thoughts have to become things. Why? Because it's the law. And we just read Psalms 1, verse 2, to meditate on the law. Why? Day and night, right? Because at a certain point, it says at the end of it that you'll prosper in all your ways, because we have to know the law of the Lord, right? And the law, that's a whole nother conversation. But the law of the Lord is, you got to learn it. You got to understand what governs this universe. You have to understand what governs your time and your space and your life. You have to understand these things. But we'll be right back. We got a short segment coming back, but you're listening to Ticket Weeknights with Chancellor Brewington.
Attention students and anyone else looking for a great deal. Sun Valley Lanes and Games has the ultimate weeknight special. For just $15.95, enjoy unlimited bowling, lucky putt mini golf, and laser tag. Flash your college ID at check-in to receive $2 off your admission. It's the perfect way to unwind Sunday through Thursday nights. Check out sunvalleylanes.com for hours and availability. Sun Valley Lanes and Games, located at 321 Victory Lane.
Lincoln's best place to meet, eat, and compete. Sun Valley.
When you need a new water heater, nothing beats the ProLine family of water heaters from A.O. Smith. ProLine models are built using commercial-grade components, meaning they're built to help you tackle your toughest days. No matter if you need a gas or electric model, A.O. Smith has a ProLine unit for you. A.O. Smith. Innovation has a name. Call Wellman Plumbing at 402-434-2400 for a great deal on a water heater today. Again, that's 402-434-2400.
Hi everyone, Kendall Warnock with A1 Automotive in downtown Lincoln. If you're looking for an automotive repair facility you can genuinely trust, we would be grateful for the opportunity to earn your business repairing your vehicle. We have ASE master technicians and qualified to work on a variety of vehicles from Hondas to Porsches, Jaguars to Toyotas, and Chevrolets to Fords. We pride ourselves on customer service and relationships, and we would be grateful for the opportunity to serve you. Give us a call at 402-477-4660. A1 Automotive. Always honest answers.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
The Link Grill, Draft, and Crafts is your spot in Southeast Lincoln for great food and drink. They're serving new menu items and a killer craft cocktail menu with your favorite draft beers. You'll love their pizza and new entree options. It's a great place to watch any live events, and they have music bingo every month. They have an aggressive loyalty program that rewards fans with 7% back on all purchases. Home of the Nebraska Power Hour every night from 8 to 9 p.m. Order online at thelnkgrill.com or stop in at 84th and Highway 2 today.
This is former Husker and NFL linebacker Jay Foreman. For years, I've suffered from degenerative problems in both of my ankles, but thanks to a thorough and thought-out plan provided by Advanced Medical Imaging, I was able to get my life back with the least amount of pain as possible. While working through multiple options, the team of physicians at Advanced Medical Imaging were there to answer any questions I had. If you're experiencing any pain at all and want to get your life back, go to amimaging.com or give them a call at 402-484-6677. Advanced Medical Imaging, located at 7601 Pioneers Boulevard.
Empower a child today with the Teammates Mentoring Program. Hope is only a conversation away when you choose to share your talent, time, and heart with a child. Together, you can build a relationship based on strengths and chart a brighter future, 1 week at a time. Find out how you can be a mentor by visiting LincolnTeammates.org. Become what you needed as a kid by joining the Teammates Mentoring Program today.
Back to What's Brewing with Chancellor Brewington on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
What is going on, everyone? I'm Chancellor Brewington. You're listening to Ticket Weeknights. We're having a great conversation. Well, I think it's great, at least. I hope everyone out there is getting something from this, is understanding, is picking up what I'm putting down, as the old heads say, no offense. But we're getting into this conversation of thought and things. And, I want to kind of wrap this up with one of the verses that, I sing. There's a song. It's called Overflow, by Transformation Church. It's a fantastic song. I think it's I really believe it's a powerful song. I try to listen to it every day, and I usually listen to it when I'm on my way to do something. When I'm in a state of, I'm about to connect with people, like starting my day. I'm going to go play basketball. I start playing basketball like 5 a.m. in the morning with a bunch of guys at the YMCA. It's really fun. But on the way there and on the way back, when I'm, getting ready for a show like this, or I'm, meeting with friends or something, I love this verse. Or I love this song because it comes from this verse. The verse is Romans 15:13. And Romans is a fantastic. Romans 8 by itself might be one of my favorite chapters of the New Testament. It's just one of the it's filled with principle, not principle, but just like, it's just so amazing. I can't even put it into words. Okay, Romans 15:13. I pray that God, the source, we call God Abba Father, right? That means source and sustainer, right? I pray that the God, the source or Father of hope, will fill you completely with joy and peace because you trust in him. Fill you with joy and peace. So I want you to get the imagery of your spirit, or you yourself, your soul, whatever you want to call it, being poured out, the source pouring into you, right? Or a cup, the imagery of a cup, right? And then the next verse it says, or the next sentence it says, then you will overflow with confident hope through the power of the Holy Spirit, Holy Ghost, Holy Ghost, whatever you want to call him. Some people call him creative intelligence. Some people call him the infinite wisdom. But this is the Holy Spirit. We call him the Holy Spirit. People, that subscribe to the teachings of the Bible, of course. But how about that right there? The source of hope will keep you completely with joy and peace. Because, I had a conversation with someone I do a show with. We do a show called The Locker Room, 1 to 2 p.m. You should come check it out, 93.7 The Ticket, or the ticket fm.com. You can go find it on there on YouTube. We have a fantastic conversation. We always start off with a quote card, then we get into Nebraska, and we get silly on there sometimes, and have a ball, and have a good laugh. But we always start out with something serious, something encouraging, something quote unquote inspiring. And one thing we talked about was peace the other day, and it was an interesting topic because. Or no, we didn't talk about peace. We talked about being successful. What is success? And so my definition of success for my personal life, the way I would judge it at the end, I want to hear good job, my faithful servant. Why did I get that wrong? Well done, my faithful servant. That's what I want to hear at the end, right? And so I think by getting there, you have to discover why you're here on earth, because I believe everyone has a purpose. Okay. And I also believe that there's a development of that. And I think there's a deployment of that purpose to all of creation, to all of humanity, to, this earth. Your contribution to earth is, discovering why you're here, developing and deploying it, and serving everyone you come across with those gifts and talents and skills. Right. That's what I believe. And so I think if I do that, man, I think all of that is in there. I think, as you pursue those things, you get, energy to do, you get, wisdom, all these things come, of course. But I asked the question, I said, Mikey, what do you think success is? And he said, man, I think it's peace, I think it's peace, and this individual, man, he's been and played in the league. He's done a lot of things that people would say is, just their lifelong dream, or they could even quote unquote never imagine it, right? He's done these things, and he's saying that the number one thing he values most is peace. He values peace. He values being able to be in a certain situation, whether it's with family, whether it's, kids, all these different things, and understand that, like, man, I'm at peace, and I can really be where my feet are, and I can really be present because I have peace. And I think that's one thing, man. We have to understand that God is the God of peace. He's the God of love. He's the God of hope. He's the God of strength. He's God of power. He's God of all these things, or anything good. God is the God of them, right? And in fact, God is good. Good is God. I mean, those are, those are two in the same, right? Or one in the same, right? We have to understand that. And so when we go to the source, man, if we just trust in who he is, right? I think that's a problem that sometimes maybe we don't understand. And I definitely, sometimes for me, I don't understand sometimes. I'm not perfect by no means. But I strive really. And some things, sometimes I don't really understand who God is, maybe sometimes. And I forget, and I slip back into an old way or an old habit. And, all I have to go to is the source. I just have to go to the source of all good, the source of peace, the source of hope. That's who I have to go to. And, and if I'm his son, he would gladly outpour all these things upon me. He would gladly give me peace. He would gladly give me hope. He would gladly, although I don't pray for peace because I know what that means. Then you get a situation or a trial of chaos or whatever, and you have to form peace out of it. So I don't pray for peace. I actually thank God for peace, right? And so that's kind of how my prayers go. Is I'm actively thanking God, and I don't, and I really put myself, and I act as this is really finished. I act like it's really finished. I won't pray something until I know that it's finished, because I don't waste my prayers. I don't go before the throne and say, yeah, I'm wishing this, but even if it doesn't happen, bless your name. Like, no, I don't go before the throne like that. I go there boldly and confidently, and I feel like the blessing. The feeling is the blessing. I know that. I know that's a fact. I know that's a law. I know that's a principle. I know that people around this, and God's not a respecter of persons. He's a respecter of principles. And that God does not care if Joe Schmo prays to him, but or if Holy Sister Saint prays to her, right? You understand what I'm saying? If Joe Schmo uses the principle and Holy Sister Saint doesn't, right? And she's just doing everything, dotting her I's and whatever, all these things, but Joe Schmo activates and uses the principles, well, he's going to get it. Why? He's going to get what he prayed for, right? And I'm not talking this, don't let your mind go to money, right? He's going to get what he prayed for. Why? Because he used the principle, right? And so we have to understand the principle. There's a story of there's a verse that says if any of you, say to this mountain, be cast into the water or whatever, and do not doubt and believe, it will be done for you. I might have butchered that whole verse, but you understand what I'm saying. And so there's a story of an old lady. She goes to her window and she sees this mountain, right? And she's like, she gets on her hands and knees and says, God, Father. She says, God, Father, you said in your word, if I believe and do not doubt, that this mountain will be cast into the sea. And I ask you to move this mountain, because it was probably messing up her sunset or sunrise or whatever it was, right? And so she woke up in the next morning, eager, got out of bed. She opened the blinds to see if the mountain was there. And lo and behold, the mountain was still there. And she said, see, I knew it. I knew it. I knew you weren't going to move that mountain. And so it's a joke, of course, right? It's kind of like one of those religious jokes, is that sometimes we pray for things and we don't even believe we're going to get them. Like we like actually expect sometimes not to get them. Like, see, it wasn't that wasn't going to happen, right? See, it didn't happen, right? We have to understand that those things we have to get to a point, and that's why what me and my friends are doing a 21 days of impression, and we're actively we're actively thanking God for a finished work, and we're not asking him to do something. We're thanking him for the finished things, and we're going deep into our heart, deep into our mind, and seeing the things that God has already put in there, and understand the things that God has already put in there are already finished. And that, so we just write in affirmations, prayers, all these different things, impressing it upon the subconscious, and we're thanking God in that. We're thanking God. So throughout the day, we go to bed with that on our mind. We wake up with that on our mind, and we're thanking God for it, actively thanking God. And we're not getting in a place where we're begging on our knees, we're crying, we're doing all this. No, we are sons of God. We are children of the Most High King. In fact, we are kings, and He is our High King. We don't do stuff like that. We are the one that we're supposed to be the crazy faith people here on earth that walk around here and say, no, God, it already finished. They're like, man, how are you going to do this? Man, it's already finished, man. I just thank you, Father, for this, and this, right? And they're like, man, this dude's crazy. But then they catch you in, 12 months, whatever. And they're like, man, it actually did work. How'd that happen? I said, and then you can say, man, I told you, you didn't believe me. And then then it's supposed to pose the question, well, how can I get that in my life? And then you have an opportunity to represent the kingdom and talk to them about the kingdom and how it works, because at the basis of the kingdom is the way you think. That's the base of the kingdom, is meditation, is thinking, is what you're speaking out, is learning how to pray, and decreeing a thing and declaring a thing. Because once you get in alignment, once you're thinking the right things, once you understand the way God thinks, once you understand God's will for you, that He's actually delegated His own power and authority over to you, to create your own life and have dominion over certain things and be a king and rule over certain things, then you can really start declaring and decreeing a thing. Okay. And that's where things get beautiful. But I think we're running over a little bit, but I'm Chancellor Brewington, former Nebraska football tight end. I pray this bless you. I pray that you have a fantastic day, week, month, year, wherever you are, and that you just go and just absolutely succeed at everything you do, and you act as if you cannot lose. Peace. I am out of here.